You know, despite the whole mage motif I've got going here, I haven't really had that reflect in the games I've been reviewing on this channel. I could be reviewing RPGs or fantasy adventure games. Heck, if I want to somewhat ride YouTube's current Fortnite bandwagon, I could be reviewing that mage-themed Battle Royale game that came out last year. But nope, I've kept myself occupied with racing games of all things. If only there was a way I could somehow fix my lack of mage-themed game reviews without leaving my cozy racing game comfort zone. Wait, I know just what to review! Maybe I should stick to platformers from now on. Everyone, you're in for something special today. The title does not lie. What I have here for today's video is, without a doubt, the worst racing game I've ever played. And to give some perspective on that, I've played Big Rigs and Eminem's Kart Racing before. But at least with Big Rigs, it's fun to see the many ways it can break. And Eminem's Kart Racing... okay, no, that game was one of the worst as well. But even then, this one's a different beast entirely. So without further ado, allow me to introduce you all to Billy the Wizard Rocket Broomstick Racing. Now, at first glance at the box art, it may not actually seem that bad. Probably no more than a simple shovelware game trying to cash in on the craze brought about by Harry Potter. But don't be fooled, this is far more than just simple shovelware, and I can prove it with only 3 words. Data Design Interactive. To those unaware, Data Design Interactive was a rather infamous game studio, known for the garbage they pumped out onto both the PS2 and the Wii. Their most well-known title is easily the quote-unquote classic Ninja Breadman, but they also have such games under their belts like Anubis II, Action Girls Racing, Rock and Roll Adventures, and a whole lot more. Games of very, very little quality, and oftentimes just copy-pasted from one another. No joke, some of their games were literally carbon copies of each other, just with a different coat of paint. Now that said, my personal experience with Data Design Interactive's games has been minimal. Aside from Billy the Wizard, I've only ever played Rock and Roll Adventures, which I only picked up because I found a copy for like $2 to $3, and Kid Sports Crazy Golf, which I played at a relative's house. To absolutely no surprise, both those games were awful. I have also considered ordering a copy of Action Girls Racing online, you know, for potential Obscure Kart Racers 3, but I don't think I'm ready to sacrifice my dignity to that degree. Don't quote me on that, though. But long before I knew about Data Design's infamous track record, I had the misfortune of experiencing Billy the Wizard at my aunt and uncle's when I was younger. Around 11 or 12 years old, if I recall correctly. This was around the age that I was starting to get into Harry Potter. So this game caught my attention while I was over at their place. A Harry Potter-esque broomstick racing game? Well, that just had to be amazing! In reality, that was the first and last time I ever played that game until now. Even as a kid, I hated it. But since I didn't have many other great ideas for how to kick off 2021 video-wise, I decided to give this game a revisit, because at the very least, you might have some fun seeing me make a fool out of myself. And trust me, I'm really about to make a fool out of myself by playing this. So before I got started, I took the liberty of giving the credits a look, just to see who was behind all this, and during this process, I made 2 discoveries. One, when you spin the pointer cursor, it gets cut off at certain angles. That's a little janky. And 2, one of the special thanks credits went to, and I quote, other mom and dad. Insert Coraline joke here. Also, take a gander at that menu music. Not that it's bad or anything, it just kinda reminds me of Toontown Online. Anyone else remember that game? But anyway, let's get into the game itself. Upon selecting to play the game, you're immediately thrown to the character select screen with 8 characters to play from. And, oof, I didn't know the kid NPCs from Crash Tag Team Racing got their own game. Though I suppose this was originally a PS2 game, so I can't flack on it too much for looking like one. Then again, PS2 games at the time looked a whole lot better than this, but I digress. Also, aside from the titular Billy the Wizard, none of these kids seem to have names. Maybe the manual elaborates on that, but as far as the game is concerned, the only one with a name is Billy. Talk about privileged. Anyway, once you've selected your character, you're brought into the level select. There are 4 different types of levels, with each type getting 6 levels, meaning there's a total of 24 levels. Well, we might as well start with the first set of levels. The tutorial. A quarter of this game actually belongs to just the tutorial. I'm not even exaggerating with that. I was literally at 25% completion after beating the tutorial. So given this is Wii shovelware, the game exclusively uses motion controls. However, it uses them in the most obtuse and awkward way I've ever seen in any game ever. What do I mean by that? Well, let me put it this way. To control your character, you use the nunchuck. Not the nunchuck control stick, the nunchuck itself. You tilt it to control your character. I wish I was joking. As to be expected, this means of controlling your character is nothing short of absolute garbage. The tilt controls are somehow both too sensitive and too stiff at the same time. When you start a turn, you barely turn, but then suddenly they decide to work and you turn too far. And even just trying to go straight, you often wobble around trying to do so, though that could just be because I don't have the most stable hands. Regardless, it just doesn't work well at all. And that's before you factor in how accelerating works. Now, of course, in most racing games, you hold a button to accelerate your vehicle, but Billy the Wizard doesn't even play by those rules. Instead, you auto-accelerate. However, by pressing the Z button on the back of the nunchuck, not holding, pressing, you increase your broomstick's speed cap, and by pressing the C button, you decrease it. For starters, the game does a horrible job of communicating this, as the tutorial doesn't specify that you have to press the button rather than hold it like you usually would for a racing game. But also, this just seems like a bizarre attempt to subvert the regular racing game formula, when the regular formula is the regular formula for a reason. Not to mention, in practice, it's really finicky to use. Especially with the previously mentioned awful turning, you're gonna find yourself swapping between mashing the Z button and mashing the C button for certain portions of races, and it just feels off. Oh, but wait, there's more. You can also press the A button to use power-ups. All one of them. Throughout the race, you'll find these rocket broom power-ups that you can use by pressing A. And while yes, the A button functions just fine, don't ever use the rocket broom. It gives you a massive speed boost, but very rarely is there a long enough straightaway where it can be used safely without the risk of missing a turn. And after it's used, your speed cap's automatically set to max, which is way too fast for any turn in this game. And lastly, there's the magic wand. Every racer has a magic wand that can be charged up by collecting these orbs on the track. And by swinging your Wii remote, you can shoot out a fireball spell. Problem is, the motion controls in the Wii remote are somehow even worse than the nunchuck. To use a spell, you first have to hold up your Wii remote upwards and make sure your character physically holds their arm upwards, and then swing it down to cast the spell. However, 9 times out of 10, it just didn't work at all. On top of that, the game uses an auto lock-on system, but oftentimes the game will switch your target randomly or just unlock on right as you're about to cast the spell, making it useless. I almost never use the magic wand during the races, but don't worry, you'll get to see firsthand just how bad it is later on. But yeah, the controls in this are really bad, so much so that I actually failed one of the timed tutorial challenges. Twice. Though now that we have the tutorial all wrapped up, let's move on to the second set of levels, the Broomstick Grand Prix, or as the game puts it, the infamous Broomstick Grand Prix. Even the game knows how bad it is. I'm very scared now. So here's how races work in this game. You ever played the level Rings of Power in Crash 3? Or the Speedway races in the Spyro games? Basically just that. Fly through the rings in the correct order, do 3 laps worth, win the race. Though with controls this horrid, it's really not that simple. You miss a single ring, you might as well just restart. Because by the time you stop and turn around to go through it, then stop and turn around again to continue, everyone else has long since passed you. And while yes, you could try to catch up by going to max speed cap, but turning at fast speeds is practically a death sentence in this game. On top of that, all the AI racers kind of just clump together, making it very difficult to get past them most of the time. Plus, if you bump into any of them, more often than not, your speed cap practically drops to 0. Oh, also, you might be wondering why I'm just showing footage of the same area over and over again. Yeah, here's the thing. That's the only environment in the whole game. I'm not joking. Across all 24 levels, the only location you ever go to is this Hogwarts-looking castle on a floating island. Though it feels wrong calling this place Hogwarts. It's more like pig farts. And before you ask, yes, I did get that from a Harry Potter musical. But yeah, every single level takes place at this exact same location. Not even inside the castle, despite the loading screen teasing that possibility. Now yes, you can go into the castle, but the most you'll find in there is a single time extender for the time challenges that I haven't gotten to yet. Beyond that though, you're gonna be flying around the outside of pig farts for literally all of your playtime with this game. I'm not the kind to call things in games lazy, because if there's anything game development doesn't tend to be, it's lazy, but I think I can make an exception here. Either way, I found myself having to restart several of these races due to the poor controls, combined with some really poor ring placement at points. But I found that the best strategy was to do what you could to get into the lead, and then, once far enough ahead, lower the speed cap to a controllable speed, and then just focus on finishing the race. The AI racers could never catch up once I got even just slightly ahead. So at that point, the only thing you'll be challenged by is the freaking nunchuck. Regardless, my strategy nabbed me victory across all 6 race levels. Oh yeah, despite this game being subtitled Rocket Broomstick Racing, only a quarter of the game is actual racing. So let's move on to the third level type. Once again set at pig farts, of course, these levels have you flying around collecting magic books that are flapping about like birds. Catch them all before the timer runs out. That's it. Across each level, the only thing they do initially is just add more books to catch, but you have more than enough time to get them all. But once you get to level 5, they bring the book amount back down. Initially, I was confused as to why, until I approached the books. While in the previous levels, the books kind of just fly wherever, in levels 5 and 6, they'll deliberately fly away from you as you approach them. And to put it bluntly, this is super annoying, particularly because of a control aspect that I forgot to mention. Flying down. Control-wise, you just tilt the nunchuck downwards, but doing this is easily where the controls are at their stiffest. Heck, oftentimes it straight up felt like my controllers locked up. It was so bad, and it made pursuing the books way more of a hassle than it really should have. That said, beyond that, these levels were just boring, but I beat them pretty quickly. Which now brings us to the last set of levels, and in my opinion, the worst level type in the game, the dragon boss fights. That's right, there's boss fights in this game. In all 6 of these levels, you face the same dragon that's just casually flying around pig farts, though the game insists that its presence puts the academy at risk. Oh no, it's gonna loop around that tower again, we're doomed! Every battle is functionally the same. Wait until you're locked onto a part of the dragon's body, then swing your remote to cast a fire spell to damage that part. Damage every part of the body, and you win. Later boss fight levels include other enemies that basically do nothing, and levels 4 and 5 up the number of dragons you have to fight. But functionally, all these levels are the same, and they perfectly capture just how bad the spell casting is in this game. As I said earlier, the Wii Remote is horribly unresponsive in this game, and nowhere is it more apparent than these levels. The number of times I held up my remote or swung and it just didn't register my command was way too many to count. The lock-on switching targets or unlocking on randomly was also at its worst here, and because of that, I'd often completely miss my shots. And this is where the means of controlling is also at its worst, because the obtuse way of turning yourself around makes it far too easy to lose sight of where the dragon's going, even despite the arrow at the top, not helped by the dragon's flight pattern often being really hard to follow. To be perfectly honest, as close as I was to 100%ing this game, I actually gave up on level 5 of this set. I was down to 1 dragon left out of 3, but just as I was only a few hits away from beating it, the timer ran out and I would have had to restart. And according to the lost screen, the remaining dragon destroyed pig farts, so you know what? I'm considering that the canon ending. So yeah, that's Billy the Wizard Rocket Broomstick Racing, completed to 92%. I would have liked to have gotten 100% for you all, but I couldn't be bothered. I'd already played the game for over an hour to get to the point I got to, so I was done. Oh yeah, that's another thing. Presuming level 6 of the dragon boss fights isn't a massive difficulty spike, you can beat this game in just over an hour. Maybe even less if you can somehow get the controls to do your bidding. This is gonna sound weird, but it's honestly kind of a shame that this game sucked as much as it did, because the idea of a broomstick racing game isn't inherently a bad one. It's just really unfortunate that of all companies to tackle the concept, it was freaking Data Design Interactive. The only real positive I can give is that the environment at least looks alright. Nothing amazing, but it's at least visually well made. And the thing is, even if you took the bad controls out of the question, I'd still consider this at least one of the worst racing games out there. The recycled location for literally every single level, the sheer dullness of the gameplay, the exceedingly short completion time, they all don't do this game any favors. But man, those controls. They just make the game borderline unplayable. It immediately makes me curious to how the PS2 version would have been with traditional controls and all, but the PS2 version was UK exclusive, so I have no means of trying it out, so that'll forever be a mystery to me. But yeah, with all that said, I have no second thoughts in calling Billy the Wizard not just the worst racing game I've ever played, but one of the worst games I've ever played, period. At least top 5, easily. I just hope I don't end up making the dumb decision of reviewing anything worse than this over the course of the year. I say as I admitted earlier that I considered ordering a copy of Action Girls Racing. I'm starting to think I need help. Though in all seriousness, thank you for watching this dumb little video of mine. I do hope this was able to provide some entertainment for you. With that said, this has been Black Mage Maverick, and until the next video, have a nice day everybody!